Mheshimiwa Rais, I really want to salute you. I saw you, a whole president. Ukatoa jacket yako, ukaweka kando. Ukanyenyekea mbele zake Mwenyezi Mungu. Those moments you spend at this shrine, the prayers you said, maombi yangu ni kwamba Mwenyezi Mungu ayajibu directly, because you spend time.
Ya Mheshimiwa Rais, wako na shida la sana na hawa watu saa yote wana around you, ni mimi. Why don't you suluhu Kenya ile walifanya suluhu Tanzania na tuachane na hao wengine? Na tunawaambia washikane hawa. Your Excellency, washikane. You want to leave this country to a person who can take us to the next level. And you do not want to leave this country to a person who will bring it down. And from where I sit, Your Excellency, and I'm a leader of many years, I know the one who can bring this country down.
Na ule mzigo uko nao wa kubeba nchi nzima. Wengine wanakutukana, wengine hawana heshima, wengine wamewabeba. Wakati wamefika mahali fulani wanasema kick you hard. Na wote tunajua tutazungumza.
All right, that is the party leader of Wiper, Kalonzo Musyoka, and party leader of NARC, Charity Ngilu, the governor of Kitui. And they were speaking over the weekend when President Kenyatta visited that shrine that was being commissioned in Kitui. But also, the deputy president has been busy and has been talking about what the Jubilee Party and ODM are just about to do. They are in some conversation to come up with a coalition that should take them to 2022. But listen first to the DP.
Vile ati sasa wanatuambia ati tupeleke Jubilee, ati tupeleke kwa kitendawili. Mimi nauliza nyinyi Nakuru. Muko na masaa ya kwenda kufundishwa kitendawili? Hawa mahasla wako na time ya kufundishwa kitendawili?
All right, so that's the Deputy President now responding to what's just going on between Jubilee and ODM. And let me begin with you, Senator Kasanga, because that event of the Wiper leader, your party leader, and the governor of Kitui happened in Kitui over the weekend. What is the agenda of Wiper towards 2022 general election? Because we hear the former Vice President saying that we're in One Kenya Alliance. It's time that the former Prime Minister supports my bid. What exactly does Wiper want to do in 2022?
First, let me just say that the Wiper party leader's message has been consistent. It has been consistent that it is time Kenyans have their leaders move together. Like I said a little earlier, the shared prosperity must be seen to be done in the next election. And this is why we are calling for the leaders to come together. This is why the One Kenya movement has been created. And our party leader is welcoming members to join the One Kenya movement so that we can move together as leaders, as one, so that we can come together. You know, this issue of winner takes it all must be addressed in the next election. And this is where my party leader comes from, and that is why he's been very clear in his messaging when it comes to this. And you know, we're welcoming all the other leaders to join the One Kenya movement.
To do what?
To move together as one, because we don't want a situation where come the 2022 election, winner takes it all situation. We don't want that. And that is why, for us, some of us who are proponents of the BBI, we are saying we need some structural changes so that we do not see a situation where we have to rely on, again, the generosity of one man to share the national cake. As you know, only 35% under the new BBI minimum is what is going to be sent to the counties. The rest of the national cake is remaining still at the whims of one person. So these are the sort of structural changes we are calling for. And we believe that moving together as one is very, very important. The coming of leaders together remains very critical in the next election. And if we are going to see a rebuilding of our economy, then that perception politically must be remedied. and it must be remedied even structurally so that every region feels represented.
Okay, and Senator Mwaura, I don't know what your political position is at the moment, but whatever it is, if you're to speak to the Kenyan as they make a choice ahead of 2022, do you see any political formation that responds to the concerns that bother them today and that have bothered them for the past few years?
There is an ideological divide, very clear one, that has emerged. One which is calling for constitutional changes to heal the problems of the nation by sharing the pie in terms of making the presidential allure more democratic, because you see the devolution one seems not to have worked. I think we over-devolved. And then the money is also to devolution going down. That seems to be the one side of the argument. The other ideological divide is about the economic model around our political economy, and it's saying that we have had a serious, state capture, where the system is producing, so many poor people. Actually, according to Knight and Frank, Sam, there are $90 billionaires in this country within our $100 billion economy. So the rest of the 50 million Kenyans share the other $10 billion. Actually, the dollar billionaires and millionaires in this country are only 8,300. The rest of the people, do not have a lot of money. And people who earn 100,000, Kenya shillings are very few, even in government. And for you to be in the top 1% of Kenya, you need to have a net worth of 2.2 million. Net worth, can you imagine? So we are a highly unequal society. So this other side of the divide is talking about bottom-up. And the bottom-up approach is basically to incentivize the small people to grow up and build the economy from below. Like the way you found during the Kibaki era, you stimulate people. Banks were hawking loans so that if you have any idea, you actually grow it to become better.
How possible is that, and what do you think must be done to ensure that happens, that succeeds?
I think that's true, because if you look at the people who are getting money from Shylocks and these other micro enterprises, they're paying up to even 120% of interest to get their ideas marketized. I hope you're getting me there, Sam. So the idea is to have more people to instead of just expanding the political cake at the top, you expand the economic. As Kwame Nkrumah said, seek ye the political kingdom, and everything shall be added unto you. Now, at this point in time, the struggle of our generation, Sam, is economic determinism, is to ensure that you have more people, having access to opportunities through enterprise. And that is the only way you are going actually to develop Kenya, so that you increase the tax base, for example, you actually expand the economy, and so that there is more. You bake the cake, ideally, that's the idea. Instead of sharing the cake, you bake it so that more people can participate in its sharing, maybe in future. So that I think, is ideological underpinning that I'm seeing. People have called it the hustler nation, for example. And you will be seeing this contestation. And I think they are very vibrant and they are very healthy. Because the essence of the other political divide about constitutional architecture is because they say every 5 years we have to stop the whole country for us to have elections, and they become very divisive and they affect the economy. So you can see at the end of it is an economic question, in my opinion. It's about stability of this country. It's about the well-being of the nation. Now, which narrative wins definitely is the one that resonates with the people, that cuts across ethnic divide, that brings more people to the center, because the idea of having a one Kenya is actually shared by everybody. We would want to have a situation where that the most important qualification that you have will not be your tribe, for example. Will not be about your anatomy or morphology. It will be that you are competent and you have equal opportunity.
Okay, and Commissioner Nyoka, well, he wants to go first, but let me begin with Commissioner Nyokabi, because I don't know what your political position is at the moment. Maybe you can put it on record so that I don't have to ask you this in future. But whatever the case may be, so moving forward, you yourself, do you see any desire to resolve the challenges Kenyans face, or it's more of coming together to capture power and figure out what to do with power once you get there?
On the first question, I'll do something lawyers call I plead the fifth. So let me move on to the second question about the power structures and how that's going to be. In the history of our country, actually, it does appear that no party can rule on its own. We've been in coalitions. Actually, all through history, this is a coalition, the past one was a coalition. It doesn't seem possible that one party can actually rule the country. So some form of coalition is necessary, and I think that is the conversation. And not just here in Kenya, it actually does seem to be, we've just come from the Netanyahu thing in Israel. So that does seem to appear the way to go in terms of political governance, that coalitions are formed, hoping that in our future, and that's why for me I favor a strong two-party system. And the BBI, does bring in the leader of official opposition for parties not forming government. So that you have parties forming government and they then practice that formation of government in a certain way, and parties not forming government to then oversight what the parties forming government are doing. And there's a bit of a clear line between who's in opposition and who is in the ruling party or ruling coalition. And if you look at all our language now, even our political parties law, it is ruling party or coalition of parties. So we are now, our law has also moved in that direction. We have to admit that it's going to be coalition of parties. Again, my place in all this conversation is where is the place of women. So I'm with Madam Gilu on Suluhu there, that, these coalitions, we women really suffer. Coalitions, when they are tribal, it then appears that only men can be tribal kingpins and tribal chiefdoms, and only men can then be in the table of decision making. We fought very hard in the BBI, I can tell you, to get a clause that requires the top of 5 to be gender sensitive and to employ the 2/3 gender rule. In fact, there we were even ready for the opposite gender rule in sense of the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, President and Deputy President being of opposite gender rule. We got it in the counties that the Governor and Deputy Governor shall consider. So this shall consider principle must also be applied at the national level, so that women are also part of the coalition, we are part of the governing systems, and we are part of the conversations going on to form that. And so women now, and even commissions like my own and women's movements, are going to be preparing women for that role. Nomination has had its own weaknesses also for women, so trying as hard as possible to get more women elected directly, that Kenyans elect men and women who are good leaders. And I like what Mwaura was saying, it is not the anatomy, it is the qualities of a good leader. And that the coalitions must then recognize those talents, those elements, and we see better progressive conversations. But the systems, we are going to have a bit of a problem with that. The systems, like now what is happening with the coalitions are now not supported by law, because you do not have the leader of official opposition, you do not have a top of 5, so we might need the country and the systems to go together. But by and large, we remain peaceful and we keep making transition.
You refer to something that, before Honorable Nyonka responds, I want us to listen to a conversation between some members of parliament from what was the National Super Alliance.
Mkiwa na wenzako Mheshimiwa Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka pamoja na Musalia Mudavadi, hii ni wakati wenyu wa kuangalia Kenya itakuwaje 2022.
You know we are in your hands. Do something.
And I implore the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and the Honorable Musalia, if you take your brother to marry and you finally realize the girl has been taken abroad to study, and finally the girl comes back, you must go back and take him to ensure that the girl is married.
And at the same time, let us work together, let us build bridges, let us pull together, and let us underpin everything we do with trust. And I'm sure good solutions shall be found for the people of Kenya.
I think what is important is for us to come together as the people of Kenya. And we put away our ethnic origins to bring Kenya first. Kenya Kwanza. This is what is most important.
Honorable Nyonka, since you've been in this kind of country for quite a bit of time, I'm sure this is not the first time you're hearing such words, that Kenya Kwanza, we need to come together. And this time around, is 2022 going to be the solution to all the ills the country faces? If yes or no, do you have any possibility of resolving what those challenges are?
Now, you've asked me a different question, and yet I wanted to respond to Mwaura first.
No, you can go ahead.
Please allow me to
You can go ahead, but don't forget my question.
No, I will not.
Note it down.
I wanted to say this, Sam. Honestly, the problem with our country is our politics. It is our politics, Honorable Mwaura, that makes us as leaders want to steal national resources so that we can perpetuate ourselves in leadership positions. The problem of this country with poverty is actually not even bad economic policies and strategies which have been laid out by whatever administration that has come. It has been the amount of resources we take into waste and what we steal. Our country in the last 10 years has moved from a country that was having a debt of 900 billion to the point where we now have a debt of 9 to 10 trillion. So, if you don't fix the politics, all those stories you're dreaming about of having people coming in together, bottom up. Bottom up, I happen to be an economics student. That's what I did in the university, you know. Bottom up economics failed in Tanzania with Ujamaa. Bottom up has failed in most of these economies. The position we have is very simple, my brother. We are in a capitalistic society. Capitalism allows people to be abused, misused, exploited, and mismanaged. So how do you solve the problem? You create an environment where your legal structures and political structures are able to then mesh each other and create an environment which is fair, equitable, and reasonable. The problem with our country today, where we are as we speak, the reason why people are talking about BBI, the reason why Uhuru, for example, had to look for a way, him and Raila, to come together and solve the problem from the previous elections is because every time elections take place, everybody in Kenya thinks that because the man comes from our tribe, now we'll be eating. And we must move out of that. Mm-hmm. And what our problem, our country is like, look at what happens every time elections take place. Do we take 2 years? We start campaigning. Look at what is happening between President Uhuru and his deputy right now. For the last 5 years, in fact, what Uhuru is doing is quite amazing. I mean, you keep seeing him going into these projects. You see him going to Lamu Port. You see him doing everything. And yet, in reality, Sam, that should never have been an issue that would have made his deputy and him disagree. They should have been working together as a team. In other words, the question that I keep asking my brother is this: why is it that in Kenya, in Africa, we are the only country where every time elections take place, the second year, we start campaigning. Economic policy, economic stabilization, having macro and microeconomic policies being discussed by the members of parliament, by the senators, that is never an issue. Everybody begins to talk about, in fact, I disagree with this thing about us being together. We have been together. Haven't we been together in this country for 56 years? We've been together. But what happens? We get together until when the elections take place. Elections take place, then we fight each other. Then after we fight each other, the issues that make us have these elections not to be acceptable, not to be credible, we don't solve them. Then when we are discussing about the issue of let us have fairness and equity in distribution of resources in this country, because people fight over resources. That is what people fight over in any country. We don't come up with strategies on how to solve, Madam Nyokabi, the issue of unequal distribution of resources in this country. When people are being employed, we are busy attacking each other. Why? Oh, this community is employing their own. They are not employing my community. In fact, they are tribalists. Elections move closer. Oh, we are now brothers. Let us come together. Let us have, no. Let us sit down and discuss openly and sincerely the issues which are challenging our country. Let us make sure the elections are free and fair and they're believable. Let us make sure there is equity in distribution of resources. Let us solve the gender issue. Let us make sure that our women are given equal opportunity to be president like anybody else, and this country will be peaceful and it will run on its own.
All right, Honorable Nyonka, and Senator Mwaura, listening to that and reflecting on what you just said, that you want to expand the economy. So the bottom-up approach, what you said that is being referred to as the hustler nation, what exactly is to be done differently from how business has been done in this country since 2013? There is now going to be such a magic bullet that all of a sudden, come 2023, we're a different society.
Now, I have done a lot of reflections on these issues, and allow me to just read one of my reflections, if you allow me. Public leadership in Africa is a dichotomy between an informal political economy based on the Ubuntu oral culture or a narrative and value system of togetherness, generosity, and reciprocity. Conversely, the formal political economy is predicated upon a Western value-based system on the impersonal application of public policy, rule of law, and separation of powers within an individual contractual society. This mismatch has thus created tensions between what is and what ought to be in the pursuit of a successful developmental state model. I couldn't find a better way of paraphrasing what I'm seeing Raila Odinga saying, what I'm seeing other leaders saying, because we all want a better Kenya. But the question is, how do we achieve it? Now, Onyonka, bottom-up is not about left-wing philanthropy, as you tried to equate to Jamal. It's not socialism. This is actually very much center-right kind of thing. It's about people getting capital to being incentivized to rise up, to build the economy. It's very different from people saying, let's share. Now, what I'm hearing us saying, and there could be agency in that, Sam, that the presidency seems to go to a certain group of people, let us expand. That is sharing political power, really, in the real sense, because positions are aspirational. So communities aspire to have one of their own amongst the, conceived five, you see? We have had the five before, remember, during the Grand Coalition. It seems to have settled the political. But then we will need to move forward, because this seems to address the big boys and girls, for that matter. It doesn't address Wanjiku, because when you access
that's what I'm asking you, Senator Mwaura. How exactly will the bottom-up approach be done?
That's what I'm coming to. So when you access state legis as a tribal king, as Priscilla said, it introduces what you call the iron law of oligarchy, where no matter how democratic a system is, only some few people tend to make the decisions. Now, when they make decisions, over time, since independence, if you look at it, it has not been in the favor of Wanjiku. What we have ended up having is a very small group of people who are super rich and poor people. Now, I want you to interrogate Kibakinomics, and maybe just to correct you, Onyonka, Kibaki left us with a debt of 1.8 trillion, not 900 billion. If, for example, you are able to borrow and be able to invest in projects that produce, new men and women who can build their economies locally, if you are able to have access to credit the way banks were hawking loans before, and then Mama Mboga is able to get that credit instead of going to a Shylock, paying 120%.
So how will you do that?
Sam, can I please? Can I raise this issue?
Let me explain. Because
no, you will.
Onyonka, I get you time to speak.
Allow him time.
The question I'm asking him is, why did Kibaki succeed?
The issue is...
Okay. It was because there was less stealing during the Kibaki regime, and they are not talking about it.
Now,
let him finish.
Let me finish.
Senator Mwaura, please finish. And I want you to be very clear on, yes, you're saying that Mama Mboga and the small Mwananchi to access credit. How exactly? Because
exactly. Let me explain to you.
Just a moment. Yeah. Because at the moment, if you want a loan, you can go to the bank. There could be certain challenges that you face. But how will a bottom-up approach make sure that those hurdles are cleared?
So let me explain to you what has happened. And I wish I had more time, because I can see time is not on my side.
Okay, just respond within
short
time.
You see, what happens is this. Government has crowded out local investors completely, because banks are now lending to government. When you lend to government, you're not really lending to real economic. What you're lending is to security. Now, these monies go into huge infrastructural projects that are highly inflated. The corruption you're talking about, Onyonka. Who gets to skim off these infrastructural projects or whatever projects that do not add value to Kenyans? Remember COVID-19, Chair, you are here. It is the rich people who make the decisions. But if that credit was available to the local Mwananchi, they know what to do with the money. Every day, every Kenyan wakes up to look for an income. Bodas, Mama Mbogas, people who are doing construction.
So how will that change in September 2022?
You see, when you actually reprioritize, instead of having this money in government going to projects that are not for Wanjiku, you actually channel the money to small and micro enterprises. I hope you're getting my point. It's just basically creating a special purpose vehicle, like a state-owned enterprise or under the Ministry of the Presidency, where then you allocate billions of shillings towards that instead of taking that money to huge infrastructure projects
Senator
which
Mora,
are being stolen by the big boys and girls.
You rightly said that. I wish you had more time because you're suggesting putting billions into some agencies. We have Ways of Fund,
and Women Fund, and Youth Fund.
I'm just wondering how differently that can be done.
It would be very different because...
Just a moment. I need to spread the question. I'll come to you, Senator Kasanga. But first, Honorable Nyokabi. So how do we do all this through politics? Resolve these challenges through politics?
It is indeed true. It is through politics that these issues are resolved. But one is not to underscore the value of infrastructure. That is extremely important. Many countries that have developed because of infrastructure. The United States of America is nothing without the infrastructure we have. So the roads, the bridges, the dams, all those are very, very important. And you will see the difference. And you can already see the difference when you travel to different parts of the country. So that is important. But then there is also another part of the question around sharing resources. And you are right that politics does this. So the politics that is allowing 35% of resources to go down to counties and 5% to go to the World Fund. That is the type of politics that we want. And you know, it is not just talking about hustlers. It is having concrete proposals that are going to resolve the issues of our people. And those concrete proposals are some of the things you see around, for example, counties getting more money. We have formed counties with 15%. You can imagine the amount of transformation that we're going to see when counties have 35% and the national government has much less available to itself. That also must go with the fight against corruption. And we must also put on this table that part of our change in politics and our political hygiene must then be that the limited resources we have are used for the right reasons. So corruption must be fought. But some, we clearly need a whole show just on this question of economics. I think that you've given us, this should have been the first segment so that we can spend more time. Because these questions are real and these questions are going to shape the next election. The next election is going to be based on economic answers, economic solutions, and shared prosperity, leaving no Kenyan behind. And that is not idle talk, that is not political talk, that is going to be requiring a lot more delving, and presidential candidates in this country will win on the basis of the solutions that they have for poverty and for some of the issues that we are putting on the table.
Senator Kasanga, do you believe that the talk going on is anything that is to be converted to concrete proposals, like she says, or is just something to woo the voters, win election, and figure out what to do with power?
I can only speak that from the lens of WIPA and my fellow colleagues in WIPA, because we are clear on this issue of shared prosperity and moving together as one. It is not a question of just seeking for political power as we think of it. But you know, you must remember what, you know, Nyonka is also saying is true, that, you know, political power is about power over resources. That's it. And let no one try to sugarcoat it. And unless we sort out our politics, these economics that Senator Mwaura is trying to say will not work. You know, in this country, we have seen prosperity. Yes, we have. We have seen prosperity whereby the microeconomics were working. In fact, most of our businesses grew about 10 years ago. Those of us who had small businesses, you know, the consultancies all grew. I can speak, you know, authoritatively in that because, you know, as an architect and our small businesses, they grew around that time. And when they grow, that expansion he keeps talking about of bottom expansion, we have experienced that. So I don't think there's anything new they're bringing to the table as far as I'm concerned. And it's not a question of new policies or new laws. We already have enough of that. The problem with our country is the politics. And the fact that the winner takes it all skews it. And then, of course, there's a corruption. We cannot understate the corruption. The fact that we are losing a lot of money to corruption, and that needs to be resolved one way or another. So I can just say that from where we sit as WIPA, we've been honest and we've come with a clean slate. I've always said that we've come with a clean slate. Our leader is there leading us. And we are saying we are here, we are ready to show you that we can actually do this and go back to that place of prosperity and we curb this corruption and we move forward as Kenyans together.
I want us to listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka said over the weekend. There's a time that there was word, I think it was from one member of parliament from Machakos County, who had indicated that they would work with UDA, but Kalonzo Musyoka says something to the tune of the contrary. Listen.
WIPA haiwezi kuwa na uhusiano na kitu inaitwa wheelbarrow. Haiwezi. Because we are guided by principles of good leadership and transparency, fight against corruption. I'm quite sure Mheshimiwa Makau, because nimuuliza Mheshimiwa, hii maneno uliongea, na kama uliongea ulipatiwa idhini na nani? Because chama kina mpangilio wake. Akaniambia yeye alikuwa amegadhabishwa na ndugu zetu wa ODM. The position is Wiper Democratic Movement, ANC ya ndugu yangu Musalia Mudavadi, Ford Kenya ndugu yangu Moses Wetangula Masika Wetangula, na KANU ya Gideon Moi. Tumeweka One Kenya Alliance, na hiyo ndiyo itaunda serikali next August.
So, Senator Kasanga, we need to end up because we have just 3 minutes to end. And your party leader appears quite confident that One Kenya Alliance will be forming the next government. Do you know of any policy proposals on how exactly a Wiper government would plan on how to deal with corruption?
You'd have to give me a lot more time, Sam, for me to dig into that. That's not fair. Okay. You can't ask me that in 3 minutes.
Give me one proposal on how Wiper government would deal with corruption in this country.
First and foremost, when you come on the clean slate, not having any shadows behind you to speak of corruption, that first is a good thing. Because you've already brought the perception that we have zero tolerance for corruption. That is just one beginning, I can tell you. And the second is to interrogate, how are we going to deal with this issue of corruption? Where exactly are corruption monies exited, for instance? And I'll tell you just a quick one, because we had this conversation amongst ourselves on the issues of large infrastructure projects, which are said to be the ones that exit corruption money. And we said this exited corruption money, which is possibly a facilitation sort of fee. You know, when you see I think there was an official in the newspaper who was caught, with a lot of properties that they have been buying cash because they get these kickbacks that are given. So you can see these facilitations so that you can give awards and contracts. What are we going to do to remove that facilitation fee so that we can get the true budget of, say, a road or an infrastructure? These are conversations that we have. And when we come into government and form government, we are going to give solutions to these things. How will we finally get the true budget of a piece of infrastructure while removing that, what you call consideration or facilitation or corruption portion of it? And we shall deal with it, I can assure you, Sam.
Okay.
Sam,
in closing, Honorable Yonka.
I wanted to say this.
Right.
I see a direct parallel on what is happening with the bottom-up approach, which is the wheelbarrow politics, and exactly what Trump did. Trump came and said, make America great again. He told the white extremist individuals in this country, particularly white Americans, that there are certain individuals here who are taking over your country. These people are immigrants. These people come from certain areas where, in fact, they are trying to mess up your advantaged lifestyle and your economy. And therefore, we need to change and make sure that if there's a way, we need to block these people and there's nothing they need to say. He gave people hope, which was actually fake hope. I actually see, and Maura, this is not personal. I just think, this is the way I think. I'm sure you've been my friend for a very long time. You guys are giving people hope which doesn't exist. To manage the issues outstanding in our country, particularly economic issues, you need thinkers, you need people who can come up and give solutions to the critical issues that are affecting our country. Unemployment is in this country, it exists because we don't set up factories. We don't have policies which encourage people to come into this country and set up factories.
And what's stopping the current leadership from doing that, including yourself in Parliament?
I wish I knew, Sam, because I'm not in Jubilee. If I came in as a party member, as a deputy party,
you can take proposals.
Absolutely not. I told you this. In Parliament, as we speak today, the majority of the members of Parliament, other than recently when they disagreed, have been Jubilee members. And everything was being done according to the Jubilee template.
So if you feel your role is not effective, can you make a personal decision and leave the institution?
Which institution?
Parliament. If you're feeling that you're not able to play your role.
Parliament is managed, given our legal structure, there are political parties that actually are participating in the exercise. I sit in the opposition benches.
But if it's frustrating, you cannot achieve what you would have wanted to achieve for the country and your people.
No, I'm waiting for Jubilee to get out so that Ford Kenya can come and Wetangula will be president.
Let's take a look at the
Sam,
feedback that has been coming to
I
us.
think Sam,
What do you think is my dream?
I think Sam, that's not a very good way of finishing with Onyonka. First and foremost, there is no government now in opposition. I think there's a fusion of the monopoly of opposition and the monopoly of government.
Senator Mora.
That's why there is handshake. Number two,
Senator Mora, allow me to take a look at the feedback because we are practically out of time. Let's just give Kenyans an opportunity to air what their views may be. You've been tweeting us at Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gituku. The hashtag to use is Daybreak, but also texting via 22422. Jenga Wakumu, certainly one cannot be judged by their parliamentary performance because that doesn't prove one's ability. But voters are more excited when they find their MP engaging in national matters. They feel highly valued on national issues, but both move hand in hand. All right, Jacob Obere. It's worrying that majority of elected senators and MPs have dismally performed, of course, on matters of speaking. For record, when one speaks at the floor of the House, that is when a voter knows he or she elected a leader, not a silhouette. Whoa. Working in a committee can't add bonga points. Waonge. Okay. Engineer Lazaro, sincerely speaking, none of these political formations is coming with the new alternative. People with the partisan interest are blindly following them just because they're inciting tribal animosity. Mutheki, you said, but the main role of an MP is legislation, that is making laws. How do they achieve that when silence? I don't know. Alula Willis, there is significant difference in critical thinking skills for those who debate and those silent. Research shows that debating results to quality critical thinking skills are required for quality ideas for development. And Musoma, you say that Kenya is currently divided into those who want shared prosperity, that is devolving more funds, and those who want resources to remain with the national government. It is for us to discuss how the 85% of funds left with the national government is shared. That's on Twitter. Then George Kamaki, you say, these are politicians. They sugarcoat everything to Wanjiku, and when they get to their seats, they forget their core agenda. Government says they are paying pending bills. Until now, I haven't seen anything in my account since 2015. I'm a youth hitting 35 in a few months. Being a man, I will be out of the youth bracket. Is that how to support the youth? George Kamakia is raising that question to all of you. And of course, the Ministry of the National Treasury said that all pending bills must be cleared by the end of this financial year. The year comes to an end tomorrow. My name is Sam Gituku. Bye for now. Thank you so much, Richard Onyonka, Priscilla Nyokabi, Senator Isaac Mora, and Senator Sylvia Kasanga.